So my wife told me the other day, I think we need to communicate better, which is always how communication is about to get significantly worse. I try, I really do. I wake up every day with one goal: do not disappoint my wife before breakfast. And somehow, magically, I fail at it before the toaster even gets warm. But this time, I said, okay, let's do it. And that was my first mistake, because apparently when my wife says, talk, what she actually means is she talks, and I sit there trying not to blink too fast so she doesn't think I'm upset, but I'm listening. Or at least I think I'm listening until halfway through she goes, why are you making that face? And now I'm trying to figure out how to control the muscles in my face at once, which is way harder than it sounds. And I swear I'm a simple guy. I have like 3 thoughts a day. My wife, she has a whole internal universe. She remembers everything. She remembers conversations we didn't even have. She'll go, remember 2 years ago when I told you exactly how I like the towels folded? And I'm like, I wasn't even in that ROM 2 years ago. But this is my life now. Trying to keep up with someone operating on a much higher level of intelligence while I'm just over here trying not to walk into a glass door again. Which, by the way, happened last week, and my wife saw it, shook her head, and said, this is why I can't leave you alone. Like I'm a toddler with a driver's license. And the thing is, she's right. 0 common sense. 0. I can't fix anything. I can't find anything. I lose my phone while I'm on it. I lose my glasses while I'm wearing them. I once lost my keys because I put them in the freezer. My wife asked, why would you do that? And I said, I genuinely don't know. At some point today, I just gave up. But the worst part, she handles everything with this calm, disappointed voice. Not angry, just disappointed. That's the worst voice a human can hear. I'd rather she yell, because disappointment means she expected better. And I don't know why she still has hope. So now I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to anticipate her needs, show initiative, be the husband she deserves. She said, can you help me with something simple? And I was like, yes, absolutely. I can handle simple. Turns out, no, I cannot. I found a way to mess it up before she even finished telling me what it was. Because she said, just follow the instructions, and I panicked. Anytime someone says that, I immediately forget how words work. Suddenly, I'm holding an IKEA manual upside down like it's ancient scripture. The whole time she's watching me with that expression that says, wow, this is the man I married. And I'm trying to look confident, like I know exactly what I'm doing, even though I definitely just connected 2 pieces that weren't even in the same box. But I kept going. I told myself, don't look weak. Don't ask for help. Typical male confidence mixed with absolutely no ability to back it up. I even said, I've got it, which is always the sentence right before something goes terribly wrong. That's when I'm standing there holding the wrong thing in the wrong room, and my wife is just staring at me, waiting for me to explain how on earth this is possible. I'm trying to come up with a sentence that makes me sound even slightly intelligent, and right there, everything takes a turn. And you're not going to believe what happens next when you start a comedy story with an everyday moment that seems harmless. You instantly pull people in, because everyone recognizes that feeling of, yeah, this is normal. Something bad is definitely about to happen. That's the power of taking a simple situation, like your wife saying, We need to communicate better, and turning it into a slow motion disaster that only you could create. It sets the tone immediately calm, relatable, and undeniably funny, because the audience already knows you're not the hero of this moment. You're the confused guy trying to survive something that shouldn't require survival skills. And that's where the hook begins, the moment your wife says a sentence that sounds normal to her, but sounds like a warning siren to you. You don't even have to exaggerate it. The joke is that you're just a regular guy with something that requires way more emotional or intellectual energy than you were prepared to use on a Tuesday morning. The thing about Nate Bargatze's style storytelling is that the comedy doesn't come from yelling or acting wild. It comes from the calmness, the slow realization that what should have been a simple conversation is already too complex for you. So you nod, pretend to understand, you try to match your wife's seriousness, but inside you're thinking, why is this happening? I didn't train for this. And that's the humor. You're already defeated, and you haven't even done anything yet. This kind of setup works because it mirrors real life. Everybody has that one person, wife, husband, boss, who says something normal, and suddenly you're in an emotional escape room trying to decode what they really mean. When your wife brings up communication, the audience knows you're about to fail before you do. They know you're not built for emotional problem solving. They know you're probably going to blink too fast. They know you're trying not to look guilty, even though you didn't do anything wrong. This relatable helplessness is what makes the opening incredibly engaging. The hook isn't forced, it's natural, because the audience sees themselves in your confusion. And then the moment you accept the challenge, when you say, okay, let's talk, that's when the comedy deepens. You've just walked yourself into a situation you are not prepared for. It's like volunteering to defuse a bomb when you don't even know how to change the batteries in a TV remote. The audience leans in because they know you're about to get in trouble without even understanding why. You're trying to survive this conversation, and every sentence you speak makes things a little worse, and the audience sees the cliff approaching before you do. That anticipation is the hook that keeps them listening. Every word your wife says becomes a riddle. Every expression she makes becomes a test. Your brain is running at 1 horsepower, trying to catch up. It's funny not because anything giant is happening, because the smallness makes it bigger. The stakes feel high even though nothing dangerous is happening. Just 2 people talking in a kitchen. But your mental panic turns it into an Olympic event. And that's the beauty of the everyday turned impossible setup. The more normal the situation looks, the harder it hits when you fail at it. And right when you think maybe, just maybe, you're handling it okay, that's when everything starts to shift, when one tiny moment, one facial expression, one question from your wife suddenly throws the whole conversation sideways, and you realize you're not just lost, you're miles from where you should be. You don't even know how you got there. Self-deprecation mixed with calm confusion is one of the strongest tools in Nate's style storytelling, because it creates instant trust with the audience. The moment you admit softly and matter-of-factly that you have absolutely no idea what you're doing, people connect with you. Feels honest. It feels real. The funnier part is that you're not trying to be funny. You're just trying to survive your own life. Smart, that quiet helplessness becomes the hook. You're not bragging. You're not pretending to be smart. You're not even defending yourself. You're simply acknowledging that you are, without question, the weakest link in your own household. And the more serious you try to look while failing, the funnier it gets. What makes this style powerful is the calm delivery. You're not panicking on the outside, even though the inside of your brain is basically a Windows computer from 1998 trying to process too many tabs at once. You talk as if everything is fine, even though everything is clearly not fine. And that contrast is what gets the laugh. When you say in a straight tone, "I lose my phone," while I'm using it, the audience doesn't hear chaos, they hear acceptance. You've accepted your flaws like a man who knows he cannot win this battle. That seriousness is what turns the line into comedy gold. The self-deprecating part isn't about calling yourself stupid. It's about acknowledging that your wife is playing chess while you're sitting in the corner, trying to figure out how Uno works. You're not upset about it. You're just surprised every time you realize how far behind you really are. You become the lovable character who means well, but keeps tripping over his own thoughts. People love that because they recognize themselves in it. They've all had that moment where someone asks them a basic question and they respond like an unplugged robot trying to reboot. Naturally, every time you confess something that seems unbelievable yet totally true. When you casually mention that you put your keys in the freezer and genuinely have no explanation for it, the audience leans forward. They're waiting to hear what else you've done. They want the next accident, the next mistake, the next moment of confusion. You're not just telling a story, you're revealing tiny disasters about yourself one by one. Each one is funnier. Could you say it like it's normal? That soft tone makes the insanity feel even more insane. You add your wife into the equation. This highly competent, organized person who must wonder every single day how she ended up with a partner who loses battles against household objects. Her calm disappointment becomes the perfect mirror to your calm confusion. She asks, "Why would you do that?" And you truly, deeply don't know. That's the hook. The honesty, the sincerity, the fact that you're standing there trying to look like a functional adult while absolutely nothing is functioning inside your mind. What keeps the audience locked in is the feeling that you're one step away from another accidental disaster at any moment. You're telling the story like everything is under control. The audience knows you well enough to understand that you are absolutely not in control, not even close. And right when they think maybe you can't possibly reveal anything more embarrassing than the last thing you said, that's exactly when you do. Because the next moment of confusion, the next lapse in judgment, the next unbelievable mistake is already waiting to appear before you even realize it's happening. Observational humor about relationships works because it exposes the tiny, invisible differences between two people who supposedly live the same life but clearly do not exist on the same mental planet. The Nate Bargatze style. These moments never come from anger or argument. They come from quiet confusion. You're watching your wife operate with the precision of a NASA scientist while you're just trying to remember where you put the remote. And somehow, both of you think you're doing your best. Between her expectations and your reality becomes the comedic fuel. You're not making fun of her. You're just trying to survive being around someone who functions at a level you can't even see without squinting. The magic is in the small details. The way she remembers conversations you swear never happened. The way she has entire emotional files stored inside her brain that you didn't even know were being recorded. Meanwhile, you're over here celebrating because you remembered to bring your wallet. That imbalance is what makes people laugh, because every couple has that dynamic somewhere. There's always one person who is fully updated software, the other one who needs to restart 3 times a day just to stay alive. And when you confess that you're the outdated one, people lean in. They want to hear how that plays out in your home. When you highlight these contrasts in a calm, factual tone. My wife remembers conversations we didn't have. The audience instantly relates. They've been there. They've seen someone argue confidently about a moment that definitely never happened. And even though you're certain it didn't, somehow you still end up apologizing. That's the shared pain that becomes shared comedy. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's the quiet confusion of a person who can't figure out how they're losing a fight they weren't even present for. There's the way she asks questions. She'll tilt her head, look at you like she's reading your thoughts, and ask, why would people lie? And do that, and you're standing there trying to come up with a logical explanation for something you know has no logic. Tension, her seriousness versus your absolute emptiness, is where the humor lives. You're trying to give an answer that sounds smart, but the only thought in your head is, I honestly didn't see this coming. The audience laughs because they've been in that exact spot, trying to defend themselves with zero evidence. What makes observational humor powerful is that it transforms ordinary moments into cinematic ones. A simple conversation becomes a challenge. A small misunderstanding becomes an adventure. A tiny mistake becomes a full-blown relationship lesson you didn't know you were supposed to learn. The more you explain your confusion, the more everyone sees how differently the two of you move through the world. It's like she's reading the instruction manual while you're wondering where the instruction manual went. The best part is that the audience senses more trouble coming. They know the moment your wife asks a serious question, the story is about to tilt sideways. They know you're about to step into another accidental disaster. You try to act calm, trying to look like you understand everything she's saying, but deep down, everyone can see that you're one question away from revealing something even more unbelievable, something even more confusing, something that will make her stare at you the way people look at malfunctioning robots in movies. And you can feel it coming closer, waiting for the exact moment your brain decides to stop cooperating again, escalating the problem without realizing it is the heartbeat of Nate style storytelling. Because the comedy doesn't come from big disasters. It comes from the tiny steps you take that slowly, quietly, and accidentally lead you straight into a bigger disaster you never saw coming. It's the idea that you genuinely thought you were doing great. You genuinely believed you were helping. You genuinely had confidence for about 3 seconds, and then everything around you started falling apart while you stood there confused, holding something you definitely weren't supposed to be holding. That slow build is what pulls the audience in. They know you're in trouble long before you do, and that anticipation becomes the hook that locks them into the story. You take something simple, helping your wife with a basic task, and you approach it with this innocent optimism, like, yeah, I can do this. And the audience already laughs because they know you can't. They know the moment you say you've got it. Absolutely do not got it. In fact, the second you confidently declare, don't worry, babe, handle simple, the universe immediately starts sharpening its knives. And The beauty is you're not trying to be funny. You're genuinely trying. You're not messing up on purpose. You're just naturally gifted at misunderstanding everything in the most spectacular way possible. The escalation starts in the smallest way. Maybe you miss your one instruction. Maybe you pick up the wrong tool. Maybe you think step 3 comes before step 1. It's tiny, something you think doesn't matter. That's exactly how it snowballs. In Nate-style delivery, you talk about those small decisions with quiet seriousness. You're giving a TED Talk on how to accidentally destroy your marriage one wrong screw at a time. The audience starts laughing because they can see the avalanche coming while you're still celebrating that you found the screwdriver. As you keep talking, the chaos builds gently, slowly, hilariously. You start describing each moment where you thought things were fine, when in reality things were not even close to fine. Your wife asks you, "Did you even read the instructions?" And you answer with confidence, "You don't deserve." But inside, everyone knows you didn't. Now you're locked in this trap where you have to act like you know what you're doing, even though you're staring at pieces that don't belong to anything you've ever seen before. The audience is waiting for the moment the whole thing collapses. They're waiting for the turning point. They know it's coming. They can feel it building with every detail you add. The misplaced screw, the confused look, the quiet panic, your wife's deep, disappointed sigh. Each beat pushes you closer to the disaster, and each beat makes the audience lean forward a little more. They're not just watching the story unfold. They're predicting it, expecting it, excited for it. When you get to that moment, the exact second you realize everything is wrong, you deliver it calmly, like it's nothing. That's the charm. You don't yell. You don't explode. You just say something soft like, "I'm pretty sure this part wasn't supposed to snap off," and the audience erupts because the disaster finally revealed itself. You sound like a man who discovered the Titanic sinking while casually sipping coffee. But the escalation doesn't stop there. It keeps climbing because every time you think you've reached the peak of the mistake, there's another layer waiting. One more misunderstanding, one more misplaced object, one more moment that proves you absolutely should not have been trusted with this job. And right as you're describing the moment where things start falling apart, where your wife walks in and sees you standing there like a confused raccoon in a construction site, that's when the story shifts again. The pressure rises, the disaster grows even bigger, and you have no idea how deep this hole is going to get, because the next part, the part where everything fully unravels, hasn't even hit you yet. The disappointed wife look becomes the silent soundtrack of your entire life. The funniest part is, you know it's coming every single time, but you still walk right into it like a guy, confidently stepping into a glass door he definitely should have seen. Nate style storytelling, this recurring expression is more than just a reaction. It's a character of its own. It's a quiet judgment, a calm reminder that you have once again failed at something that probably wasn't meant to be failed at. And the moment she gives you that look, you already know the answer to every question you're pretending to think about. That look tells the whole story before you even explain what went wrong. The audience laughs because they've seen it too. They know that face, that sigh, that tiny head tilt that says, somehow you found a new way. What makes it so powerful is that she doesn't have to raise her voice. She doesn't need a dramatic moment. She doesn't slam anything or yell. She just stares calmly like she's watching the trailer of a movie she's pretty sure she doesn't want to see. And you standing there, trying to breathe normally, trying not to blink too fast, trying to look like a person who has control over his life, are fully aware that you have absolutely none. That's where the comedy hits. It's not the mistake itself, it's the way she silently processes the fact that she married you willingly. And the best part, you always try to defend yourself, even when you know there is no defense. You start giving explanations that sound like you made them up on the spot. Things like, well, see, I thought this part went with that part. Even though you clearly never thought that, you're lying to yourself while talking out loud, and the audience can picture it perfectly because they've heard themselves ramble awkwardly in the same way. Your wife just stands there, arms crossed, not saying a word, which somehow feels worse than if she had yelled. Her silence forces you to keep talking, keep digging, keep making it worse. And that silent disappointment becomes funnier with every breath you take. This expression becomes a running theme in the story, the recurring punchline that gets better each time. Every time you describe a new failure, everyone waits for the look. They know it's coming. They're counting down in their heads. And when you finally mention it, casually, like it's part of your daily routine, because it is, that predictable moment becomes the hook that pulls people deeper into the story. It's the thing the audience looks forward to, the thing that keeps the rhythm going. What makes it even more engaging is the contrast. She is calm, controlled, logical. You are none of those things. Her disappointment is rooted in the belief that you are capable of doing better. Your humor comes from the fact that you are definitely not. She believes you can improve. You believe you just made the bold choice to continue living at your current level. Gap, her hope versus your limitations, is the comedic engine that never stops running. You promise yourself that next time you'll do better. You even rehearse in your head, this time I'm gonna focus, but not gonna mess up. But the moment she gives you another simple task, the universe whispers, he's not ready. And 5 minutes later, you're standing in the hallway, holding the wrong object again, already sensing the disappointment approaching like a slow-moving storm cloud. And just when you think you've seen the worst of that expression, there's always another situation, another impossible task, another misunderstanding, another moment where you accidentally reveal how unprepared you are for adulthood, waiting right around the corner, ready to trigger the next level of that calm, devastating, hilarious disappointment that you're never quite ready for. Ending a story on a cliff instead of a conclusion is what keeps the entire audience locked in, because it flips the rhythm of traditional storytelling. Normally, people expect you to wrap things up, tie the bow, explain what happened next. But in Nate-style storytelling, the moment you get to the edge of the disaster, the exact second before everything collapses, that is where you freeze the moment. You hold it right there. You stretch the tension in the calmest possible tone, like you're casually walking the audience toward the edge without telling them there's no ground left. That suspense becomes addictive. Viewers lean in. Their brains won't let them scroll because they need to know what happens next. And the funniest part is you're acting like everything is fine, even though you're standing in the ruins of your own decision-making. It works because you build the entire story step by step, mistake by mistake, confusion by confusion, until the audience can feel the disaster rising behind you like a cartoon wave. They know something big is coming. They know you're about to discover something you absolutely should have noticed earlier. Practically see the moment where your wife's face enters the scene like a final exam you didn't study for. But you, the smart in the story, are still oblivious. You're still trying to figure out why the instructions don't match the thing you're holding. That dramatic irony, where they understand more than you do, is the hook that keeps them glued to the moment. When you reach that final point, the moment right before the truth hits you, you slow down your delivery. You break the sentence. You take your time. You talk like a man who doesn't know he's seconds away from emotional impact. You describe everything in unnecessary detail, the angle of the object, the way you're squinting at it, the confused noise you make when something doesn't make sense. And the audience knows. They're waiting for the drop. They're waiting for the shock. They're waiting for the thing that finally reveals the absolute scale of your mistake. But instead of giving it to them, you step out of the moment. You hold the tension hostage. You leave the story suspended in midair. You give them the feeling that something huge happens next, something unbelievable, something you still can't mentally process, and then you just stop right before the reveal. Not with a finale, not with a wrap-up, just a moment frozen right at the edge, where the only thing louder than your silence is their imagination filling in the disaster you're not giving them. This style works because it mimics real life. Real disasters don't have neat endings. They just unfold and keep unfolding. Just when you think it can't possibly get worse, you discover a new level of wrong you didn't even know existed. That's the energy you capture when you stop the story right before the breaking point. The audience becomes trapped in curiosity. Their brain screams, what happened next? But you don't let them have it. You hold them in that suspense. And the best part is, the cliffhanger doesn't feel forced. It feels natural because your whole life in the story is a series of moments where you figure things out too late. Of course, this one moment would freeze right before impact. Of course, the disaster waits patiently on the other side of your last confused sentence. And as you hover at the edge, describing the final detail, the audience senses that the real chaos, the real punchline, is right behind you, waiting to crash into your life the moment you turn around. So at the end of all this, my wife is standing there looking at me like she's trying to figure out how I've made it this far in life without a full-time supervisor. And I'm standing there holding the wrong piece of something I wasn't even supposed to touch, trying to look confident even though I know. Deep down, I probably caused 3 separate problems I haven't even discovered yet. She just sighs, that quiet married people sigh, and says, "How do you function?" And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. I think I just wake up and hope for the best, but that's marriage. She's my partner, my best friend, the person who holds this whole house together, and somehow also the person who genuinely believes I can improve. Even though the strongest evidence suggests otherwise, she has faith, I have confusion. And somehow it works. Every day, she tries to upgrade me like software, and every day I'm like, yeah, don't think this device supports updates. And she just shakes her head because she knows, no matter what, I will always find a way to mess up the simplest thing. I love her, she loves me. And even though I have 0 common sense, she still lets me exist out in the world, unsupervised, which is honestly the biggest act of trust I've ever seen. Every time I think I'm finally getting better, every time I think I've got it figured out, that's exactly when life taps me on the shoulder and goes, "Man, not even close. And that's pretty much us. My wife, my life, and me just wandering around in the background, trying my best, holding things I shouldn't be holding, hoping nobody notices the smoke coming from whatever I just accidentally broke.